Welcome to the Wealthy Life. Are you keeping your estate wishes a secret? What's to hide? Estate planning advisor Jacqueline Knobloch is here to explain why keeping your family in the discussion is important. Jacqueline, welcome to the Wealthy Life.
Hello.
So why do people think that this is such a secret?
I don't know if it's so much a secret, but they're just uncomfortable. Naturally, talking about estate planning relates to the fact of end of life, and that's not usually a fun conversation. But I think the biggest driver is a lot of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, they've never included their children in the conversation about money. So to all of a sudden open up the books and say, hi, this is the end result of decades of financial decisions is naturally uncomfortable, and so they just avoid it altogether.
Yeah, there's a few taboo topics, and money is one of them. And I think even with that generation, more so than maybe other generations.
Yeah.
But if you don't talk about it, bad things might happen. We'll get to that in a minute. So what are some of the benefits of having a family discussion about estate wishes?
I think for most clients, their intent, their reason to go into estate planning is because they have a certain amount of wealth they want to transfer to their children because they want to do something nice for them. So to include their children in the conversation really means it's personal, and not only is the intent positive, but it's also received in a positive manner. So each child is generally very different and their lifestyles are different. So it allows for really conscious giving and how those children inherit the family wealth and how legacy continues onward.
Oh, that sounds so nice. And I know when talking to people, sometimes having that conversation encourages them to maybe give some things away earlier while they're still alive. Because, or even at least having the conversation, you get the benefit of giving while you're still here to enjoy it. Because after you're gone, who knows?
Exactly.
Now, do you ever see any examples where people want to give certain items away to certain people and the receiver does not want it?
Unfortunately, yeah, a lot of the clients that I work with have businesses, and so maybe right now all the children work in the business and everything is great, and they just naturally assume that all the children are going to continue to work in the business. But when you have those one-on-one conversations with them, what you really find out is often there's one child actively involved in the business. That's their business. They want to see it for decades to come. And quite often with others, one may actually want to make a career change when mom and dad are no longer apart. And another factor to consider is those individuals and their marriages. So if you're giving shares of a business to a child who may have concerns about marital future, that might not be the best long-term strategy for the survival of the business.
Wow, everything that you just said, there's a lot to think about. You guys better be paying attention. And when you think about the scenario, maybe Johnny doesn't want to take over the business anymore. If you didn't have the conversation, you would never have known that.
Exactly. And given the values of a lot of these businesses, they make up a considerable amount of a family's net worth. So if we want to have equal distribution of wealth to all the children, we want to make sure there's enough capital in the conversation to make it equal per child.
Oh, and that's a really good point. So if the business is 80% of the value of the estate, it's going to one of 4 children. Well, that's only going to leave 30% or 20% left for the other 3 kids, and that's not fair.
Exactly.
So what are some of the options that parents could do in that scenario to even it out?
So we look at all the different assets and what they might be as value in later in life to see if that discrepancy still holds true. But there's a lot of different products out there to help equalize the estate, and one of them quite often is the use of life insurance to make sure that we generate the capital needed upon end of life so that there's an equal distribution among the family.
Yeah, and I guess the other option is the one beneficiary could buy out the others, but that's assuming they have the capital to do so.
Exactly, and that's not always in the best interest of the individual or the company to start laying out that much capital all at once.
So is there some ways that people can start the conversation without getting too personal? I mean, do we need to tell our kids and our grandkids everything about what our assets are worth and how much we have in our investments in our bank account? Or should we just talk generalities?
I think it depends on the family. So I'll say quite often families just need to have an understanding of what are the assets? Is there a home, a family property? Is there a business? What are the major things that are in play? And as they have those conversations with the children, they'll get a general sense of how engaged they are in the process and considerations that may need to be made. So for one of the children, there may be a reason to go into further detail if they see them playing a more active role in their life long term, because as people get older, they do often need help, and that generally comes from one of the children. So there may be a reason for that. But right off the get-go, there's not often a reason to all of a sudden spread all the information and say, have at her, just because their requirements in terms of making decision isn't the technical know-how, it's more of a conversation between parent and child.
And I think one of the most common decisions, so I'm going to go back to the example of 4 kids. Some parents think, oh, I'm just going to appoint all 4 the executor. Not a good idea? What goes wrong in that situation?
First off, there's a reason for most families, assuming a certain amount of net wealth, that you generally want maybe a third party to be the executor. It's not an enjoyable job. Nobody wants to be the executor of an estate, and quite often many people don't realize it can take at least a year, often up to 3, to actually complete an estate and have probate completed and have assets sent out to the family. So you're really putting an onerous job on 1, if not 4 of your family members, and to try and have them all agree on decisions when they've just lost a parent and there's a high stress and high emotion situation, that's not an environment for positive outcomes.
Forget it. It's a nightmare. Hire a corporate executor. Good advice. And for those of you wanting to know where to start, we have a family discussion checklist to make your life a little easier. Contact us at The Wealthy Life. Jacqueline, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.